Hello everyone, today we are going to explore one of the most intriguing and baffling mysteries in the history of human attempts to communicate with the unknown. A single moment in 1977, when the universe may have spoken back to us. It is a moment known to scientists as the wow signal, but over decades it has taken on a much more haunting name among conspiracy theorists: the silent signal, the night it was heard, only once, never repeated, never explained, and never forgotten. Imagine. It is a warm August evening at the Big Ear Radio Observatory in Ohio. The massive radio telescope is pointing toward the vast darkness of space, scanning the skies for faint whispers of extraterrestrial life. The night is quiet, the equipment hums softly in the background, and then in the middle of the day, something extraordinary happens. A burst of radio energy appears on the screen, unlike anything operators have ever seen, lasting for exactly 72 seconds. It is strong, it is sharp. It is not like the usual noise from stars, planets, or human-made satellites. The astronomer on duty, Jerry Amen, circles the strange signal on the printout and scribbles one word next to it. Wow, little did he know that his small reaction would become the name of the most famous unexplained radio signal in human history. But while the world calls it the wow signal, others prefer to call it the silent signal, because for all our searching and all our questions, it has never spoken again. Some believe it was genuine message from another civilization, a cosmic hello from light years away. Others believe it was something much darker, a warning, a threat, or perhaps an accidental leak of some alien event that was never meant for human ears. What makes the silent signal even stranger is that its source seemed to come from the constellation Sagittarius, near the center of our galaxy, a place filled with stars, planets, and possibly worlds teeming with life. But when astronomers turned their telescopes back to that part of the sky, the signal was gone, as if whatever had sent it had vanished or shut down or moved. On like a ship in the night, the silent signal has been analyzed for decades, with some scientists suggesting it could have been a comet, others insisting it must have been interference from Earth. But none of these explanations fit perfectly. The frequency of the signal was incredibly precise, 1420 megahertz, the natural emission line of hydrogen, the most common element in the universe. This frequency is considered a kind of universal hailing channel, because any intelligent species with radio technology would likely know it and perhaps use it to communicate. But if this was a hailing signal, why was it sent only once? Why no follow-up? Why no reply to our attempts to listen again over the years? The story of the silent signal has taken on a life of its own. Rumors swirl that the government knows more than it admits, that deep within classified archives there are recordings and translations of the message that was hidden from the public. Others whisper that the silent signal was never meant for us at all, but for another alien civilization, and that we intercepted it by accident. In this theory, we were like children eavesdropping on a conversation between giants, and the giants noticed. There are chilling stories from amateur radio astronomers who claim that in the years after 1977, they occasionally picked up faint echoes of the same frequency, a ghost of the original signal appearing for just seconds before vanishing again. Some even claim to have heard strange modulated tones buried in the noise, like the fragments of a language. But official science dismisses these reports as misinterpretations or equipment errors. The more you look into the silent signal, the stranger it becomes. In the archives of Big Ear, there are mentions of unusual anomalies in the hours before and after the signal appeared. Strange spikes of energy that did not match known cosmic sources. One technician described it as if something was testing the waters, sending little pulses before unleashing the main message, and then disappearing for good. Even more unsettling are the accounts from people who lived near the observatory in 1977, who reported seeing strange lights in the sky that same night. One farmer told local papers that he saw a glowing object moving slowly across the horizon toward the general direction of the telescope, before vanishing into the stars. In the decades since, the silent signal has inspired countless books, movies, and theories, but it has also drawn the attention of people who claim to have been contacted after speaking publicly about it. Jerry Amen himself has said that he received anonymous letters in the mail with cryptic phrases like "stop listening," and they are not friendly. There is no proof of who sent these or why, but they add a layer of unease to an already chilling mystery. Skeptics, of course, insist that the silent signal is nothing more than an unexplained but natural event, maybe a rare cosmic burst, or some unknown space weather phenomenon. But even they cannot explain the precision of its frequency or why nothing like it has ever been detected again in a universe of endless repetition and patterns. The silent signal remains a lonely one-off a voice in the dark that spoke once and fell silent forever that night after Jerry Amen discovered the strange printout. He did not rush to announce it to the world. Instead, he quietly made copies, studied the numbers, and compared them to all known sources of interference. The data showed that the signal had an intensity that rose and fell exactly as expected from something drifting across the sky with the rotation of the Earth. This meant it was not from a nearby source like a car radio or an airplane. It behaved exactly like something far out in space, yet no known astronomical object in that part of the sky could have produced it. The next evening, the Big Ear team pointed the telescope to the same coordinates, but there was only silence. They tried again night after night, for weeks, and still silence. It was as if the sender had been there for a moment, and then erased itself from existence. In the years that followed, researchers from around the world made pilgrimages to Ohio to study the original data printouts. They checked for comets, satellites, military signals, even classified projects. Nothing fit completely. The comet theory in particular was popular with some astronomers, but those who were there at the time rejected it, saying no comet could produce such a sharp signal at exactly 1,420 megahertz without any distortion. One of the strangest details that often gets overlooked is the sheer precision of the signal. The frequency of hydrogen is like a cosmic reference point. It is stable, unchanging, and universal. If you wanted to send a message across the galaxy, you might choose it, because any advanced civilization would know to listen there. In fact, back in the 1950, scientists working on the earliest SETI projects had proposed that very idea, which makes the silent signal feel eerily intentional, as though someone somewhere had read our books and decided to knock on our door. But why would they knock only once? This question has haunted people for decades. Some believe that the sender was moving, maybe a ship passing by a planet, aligning for just over a minute before moving on. Others think it could have been a one-time test, perhaps to see if anyone out there was listening. A test we failed to answer. There are also darker ideas. What if it was never meant for us? What if we were the unintended listeners, the cosmic equivalent of overhearing a private conversation, perhaps between two alien outposts, or a warning sent from one civilization to another in a language we cannot yet decode? If that is true, then maybe the silence since then is deliberate. Maybe the sender knows we heard them and has chosen not to speak again. As the years passed, the legend of the silent signal grew in strange ways. Amateur researchers began reporting odd coincidences, power outages, strange dreams, or feelings of being watched after studying the day too closely. One man in the early 1990s claimed that after publicly presenting his theory about the signal being a distress call, he was visited by two tall, pale strangers in black suits who warned him to drop his research. He laughed it off at first until his computers were mysteriously wiped days later. In 2001, a group of university students attempted to replicate the conditions of the 1977 detection. They rented time on a similar radio telescope aimed at the same coordinates and waited for a month, mostly hearing static and background noise, until one night they picked up a faint burst at almost the same frequency, but instead of lasting 72 seconds, it lasted only 4 and contained a strange pulsing rhythm. When they examined the recording, they noticed the pulse matched a mathematical pattern known as the Fibonacci sequence, something that occurs naturally in plants, shells, and galaxies, but in this case was unnervingly precise, as though it were constructed. The recording vanished from the public a week later, after the lead student claimed they were pressured by an unnamed government agency. The most disturbing rumors, however, come from those who believe the silent signal is still being heard, but only by certain facilities, and only in fragments. According to this theory, the signal has returned multiple times over the decades, but in shorter bursts, often buried in cosmic noise, intercepted by classified deep space listening posts around the world. These fragments allegedly contain encoded data, possibly images or coordinates. Though no proof has ever been released, skeptics dismiss these as fantasies fueled by science fiction, but believers point to declassified documents from the Cold War showing that both the United States and the Soviet Union had programs to monitor deep space radio for unusual signals, not just for aliens, but also for possible enemy technology. If the silent signal was intercepted by both sides, it might explain why neither has ever officially disclosed more. Perhaps it was too dangerous to acknowledge. Perhaps it revealed something about the universe that humanity is not ready to know. Over the years, the silent signal became more than a mystery. It became a symbol, a ghost in the wires of our search for meaning and connection to the cosmos. But for some people, it was not just an abstract puzzle, it was personal. One of those people was Dr. Lena Morris, a radio astronomer who had been obsessed with the signal since she was a teenager. She spent years applying for grants to search for it again, and finally in 2012, she convinced a private foundation to fund an independent deep space monitoring station in the Nevada desert far from urban interference. She built her array with custom-designed receivers, tuned precisely to the hydrogen line, and then she waited. Weeks passed without anything unusual until one night in early March, the static broke with a faint spike. Lena's heart pounded as she adjusted the equipment. The spike sharpened, grew stronger, and then for exactly 72 seconds, she saw the same narrowband signature as the 1977 signal. It was identical down to the last detail. She scrambled to record it. The equipment hummed and beeped, but as the signal faded, a strange thing happened. Her monitors flickered, displaying a series of symbols she had never seen before. They looked almost like constellations drawn in glowing white against a black background. Then the screens went dark. She backed up the data on 3 different drives, but within hours each drive failed one after another, as if something had erased them remotely. The only surviving evidence was a handwritten note in her logbook describing the event. She tried to share her experience with colleagues, but most dismissed it or warned her not to talk too loudly about it. A month later, Lena disappeared. Her car was found abandoned on a dirt road 20 miles from her home. Her house showed no signs of struggle, but all her research materials were gone. Her disappearance barely made the news to most. It was just another unsolved case in the Nevada desert. But to those who followed the silent signal, it was proof that something or someone was keeping secrets. The few who claimed to have known Lena well say she had been close to a break through. They say she believed the silent signal was not a random message, but a recurring beacon that followed a pattern hidden in deep time, and that the next predicted appearance was decades away in 2049. And yet there are whispers of it already being heard again by certain observatories in remote corners of the world. Whispered about, but never confirmed. The most chilling theory of all comes from a retired intelligence analyst who once worked with satellite surveillance. He claims that the coordinates of the silent signal do not point to a distant star at all, but to a point in interstellar space that is moving toward us slowly, steadily on a trajectory that will bring it frighteningly close to our solar system in the far future. He would not say what he thought it was, but when asked if it was a planet, a ship, or something else, he simply said it is listening to. Perhaps the silence since 1977 is not because the sender has stopped talking. Perhaps it is because they are waiting, listening, watching. And when they speak again, it will not be a test, it will be the beginning. Until then, the silent signal hangs over our understanding of the universe like an unanswered question. A voice in the dark that spoke once fell silent and left us forever wondering what we heard and what is still out there.